Welcome, folks. This is a tarot reading for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant for the month of January 2019. And as with my last set of videos, I'm going to be using the Gemini Astrological Tarot Spread, which I've also got a video on if you're unfamiliar with how it works. Otherwise, I'm just going to jump right into it, and please enjoy. All right, so Aries, this is your Ascendant for this coming January. It's the Emperor reversed. And let's just do a bit of overview here. Let's figure out what kinds of cards we have and how many repetitions we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 major arcanum. So not a whole ton of major arcanum for you. Not a whole ton of major things going on potentially this month. All right, so then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 Pentacles cards. So pretty decent amount of Pentacles cards there. We've got 1, 2, 3 Cups cards. So Cups and Pentacles mainly. And then we've got 1 Wands card and 1 Swords card, it looks like. So we've got a minimum of Wands and Swords and a maximum of Pentacles and Cups as far as the suites go. And then, of course, we've got the 4 major arcanum. And we've got 2 court cards, it looks like, as well. Do we have any repetitions of numbers? It doesn't really look like it at first glance. We have 2 7s, and I think that's pretty much it as far as a repetition of numbers. High Priestess is 2, this is 2. So in a sense, we have 2 2s, but, and I guess 2 9s because Sun is 19 or 9. Okay, so I'll just keep that in mind as I go through and see if it yields anything interesting. I'm going to bring you over to the Wheel of Fortune card here in the center. This is sort of the card that sums up everything for this month for you. And this card is typically about like a change in fortune, a pause, and then a movement towards something new or whatnot. It's a very slow change, and being in the center like this, there may be a theme of needing to examine the results of your of your past actions, not good and bad, but past actions. So examining like why certain things are happening for you that month in January may help you to better understand them, like looking back at kind of the fortune you've sown for yourself, especially in the previous month and so on, though it could go back to things further in the past and whatnot too. So the Emperor reversed in the Ascendant, somehow there may be a power struggle for you or a theme of not being sure what to do with what you have, with the power that you have. The Emperor is buffeted by 2 very powerful 9 cards. Oh, I'm sorry. There's actually 3 9 cards. Yeah, 1, 2, and 3. So 9 is probably the biggest numerological theme in this spread. And 9 is a number of like perfection and fulfillment, but also sometimes of crisis. Though these 2 9s are and the Sun are much more about sort of like fulfillment and things coming together and so on, in a very wholesome, holistic way. So there's a lot of, in a sense, there's a lot of protection for you this month, or there's a lot of abundance at least around you. This card is in the 12th house, which could suggest that you may be making like lavish expenses or kind of having like a grand old time, so to speak, and expending a lot of energy on that. But it seems like an unlikely card that to be sort of depleted in a sense. It seems like it won't heavily deplete your energies, but I would sort of be wary about being intemperate and stuff, maybe having a bit too much drink and things like that. But then, in the second house, you've got the highly auspicious 9 of Pentacles. And so this is where I'm seeing that on some question with the Emperor of like, what do I do with my power? What do I do with my empire, so to speak, with everything I've gathered together and whatnot? Because you do appear to have some sort of financial abundance and things, and there's only good aspects to the second house. We have the Queen of Pentacles, very complementary, nice for gathering a lot of resources and, gathering a hoard of stuff or bulking up your property if you're investing in stock and property and anything like that, this is probably a great month for you to do business. But it's also a good month to potentially share the things you have with others if you can, instead of sort of just keeping them to yourself. It looks like over here in the 11th house, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a lot. I do that with these readings. In the 11th house, friends and people similar to friends in your life, right, may be having a really hard time. So it may be, you may be in a place where you might be able to help them out with that, especially since you have so much abundance. So that's something that's definitely going to be weighing on your consciousness. This could also be sort of like a fear blighting your hopes about the future, a fear that you may lose everything you have. And so be careful not to just squander your time and energy into just sort of partying or things like that. This can also be like a great and powerful host. Like, I don't know if you're having a bunch of parties this coming month or something, but that could be a possibility. But the only danger of this card is here in the 12th is sort of like almost having too much and not using it wisely and for the greater good, you know, almost like, or hoarding it or being like fearful of losing it, just like this card is kind of hinting at. But we only have good aspects on the second house: Queen of Pentacles aspecting, Ace of Wands aspecting, and Knight of Cups aspecting. These are all by and large very complementary cards. So again, your financial situation and stuff is looking great. Your family life is looking good as well. There may be some new potentials from the Ace of Wands to strike out, sort of like, you know, strike gold, get lucky, that kind of a thing. The Knight of Cups is potentially somebody offering you something new. And the Queen of Pentacles is just sort of, to me, just kind of more of the same of this Nine of Wands, like just having a lot of abundance, you know. And it could also mean that you get some sort of inheritance or something like that. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, Knight of Cups looks like somebody coming to potentially offer you something new, or to even offer to buy what you own, or some kind of diplomacy or something like that. Going back to this Emperor card, you know, if we kind of compare it to the Wheel of Fortune, right? Even the Emperor can't escape the Wheel of Fortune. The Emperor can't escape the results of his actions and so on, and has to deal with things of the world and whatnot. So while it does emphasize great and good fortune along with this auspicious second house, it also may emphasize that time is running out to do something with that fortune. Time is sort of, things are changing, things are gradually starting to shift, and so your power is becoming inverted in a sense. What is potentially distracting from that power? Well, we have three rather difficult cards aspecting this reversed Emperor. We have the Five of Pentacles, we have the Seven of Cups, and we have the Seven of Swords. So 5 and 7, those are challenging numbers in and of themselves. 5 is very much a disruption of order, an influx of spirit disturbing order and security and comfort. And 7 is very much a challenge to embrace one's destiny and rise to greater responsibilities and heights. Especially with these two, the Seven of Cups is sort of the temptations of the world before one can fully step out into one's own. And then the Seven of Swords here is basically having a full cup. That story where somebody wants to learn from a great teacher, and so the teacher pours the water into a cup until it overflows and keeps overflowing, and the student goes, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the teacher goes, your mind is like this cup. It is so full that it cannot be filled with truth. So we have being tempted by the world. We have kind of the fear of losing what you have, and sort of being suspicious, being doubtful, having too many ideas about things as well, and perhaps not being totally honest. So these things are sort of causing a power inversion for you. And as far as the houses they refer to, this is the 8th house, dealing with like secrets and the unknown. And so you may be like being pulled towards something tantalizing and whatnot that you've never really explored. And perhaps it's something you need to explore. I'm not sure. It may be something that once you see it for what it really is, the bubble bursts and the fog is lifted. But yeah, this card being in the fifth house here is definitely more about like sort of a fear of taking risks, perhaps. And it's almost like, again, you're just hoarding what you have, hoarding, holding on to it, not really sharing it, not taking a risk with it because you're afraid you're going to lose it all and that sort of a thing. So I would caution you to really meditate upon that and see if there's a way out of that hole, because it's not going to lead you anywhere good, honestly. He's looking at the Ace of Wands here, and so it's almost like he's skeptical that there could be that risk and new ways of utilizing one's powers could be at all fruitful, in a sense. So yeah, and we already talked about this one, like sort of hopes and friends and things like that. So if we go to, let's see, the sun is worth looking at. It is reversed. And it is opposed by the high priestess. And so actually these four always aspect one another. So we have these three cards aspecting the sun. And the sun is in the position referring to like courage, referring to siblings and things like that. So, and also journeys. So there could indeed be some sort of journey in your midst. As far as siblings go, there might be a missed opportunity here. I'm not sure. That's just what sort of comes to mind. But I think, again, this is sort of an inability to take a major risk and sort of go on a new adventure and sort of embrace like a more innocent side of pleasure and leisure and stuff. The third house is very much about pleasure and leisure. And if we kind of compare it to the seventh house too, which has to do with desire and relationships and stuff, we find that this is a very like serious card to have here. You're perhaps like too serious about pleasures and relationships and having fun. You're trying too hard to be like this noble gallant prince or something. And it kind of reminds me of the movie Shrek, where it's like, the princess is expecting this handsome gallant prince and she gets Shrek instead, and Shrek is sort of more like the sun card, right? He's just like an innocent. He doesn't look like this, but he's an innocent, and he's actually much more noble than somebody who's like so serious and wants to like save the day and offer some sort of like grand romantic gesture. So yeah, Emperor is very serious as well. So it's almost like you're just too serious, and perhaps again your downfall here is just thinking too highly of yourself and being caught up too much in kind of an illusion of what love may be, in an illusion of fulfillment and that sort of a thing. So you may want to contemplate that during this month and see how some of the things you're pursuing or the way you're thinking or feeling about things and people and places is not kind of heading down a somewhat slippery slope, I guess you could say. Because honestly, I mean, with the sun here, you do have great potential to sort of embark on a wonderful adventure of leisure and whatnot. But I think, again, we have some degree of like financial worry or inability to act, just not committing, being sort of infantile in ways, kind of inhibiting the sun. This card aspecting the sun is kind of like, is very Tomasic to me. It's like an inability to move and again to give up what you think you have that's so important and just kind of be more innocent and open and honest. And then the high priestess aspecting this may be sort of a suppressed sexual urge or feeling somewhat shameful about sex because of your mother or because of like your spiritual practice too. Leisure and entertainment and sex might be sort of marred by this priestess aspect. This is the ninth house for Aries. And so, there's a strong like sort of holy vibe to what you believe in and your relationship to the divine or your spiritual path. And so again, you may be kind of too passive about things, thinking that it's not right for you to just embark on a more innocent, free form path. Like you have to pay attention to teachings or precepts or something like that. That could be a major stumbling block for you, I would say. And, we have with the Nine of Cups aspecting the priestess, we might say that it's like this egotistical meditation. Like there's something called the spiritualized ego, and it happens when people think that they're becoming greater and more spiritual and therefore more exalted because they meditate like 8 hours a day or something like that. But that's all egotistical meditation, right? Which here the Nine of Cups is evoking that to me, though it doesn't always evoke that, but it's evoking this egotistical, like kind of false sense of heroism that you may have been carrying around with you for a long time now, of like, I'm so great, look at how long I can meditate and I can do this many mantras, or I can, I'm so psychic, or I channel these great beings or something like that. That's really not helping you, according to this. That's really just getting in your way. And so, maybe this is why you have this fear here of losing everything. Maybe your bubble just needs to be burst a bit. I don't know. If this could also be a person entering your life, this would be especially true if you're a woman watching this. I think this could be kind of a negative influence of your father fading away and possibly being replaced by some sort of like Sir Galahad type, or just like really like valiant kind of person coming into your life, whether male or female, to like offer you their heart or something like that. But again, there's some suppression going on of that, as I pointed out and whatnot. I'm not going to do like every house really linearly like I have done in some other videos. I'm just going to keep kind of jumping around. If we look at the 10th house, this is a situation in which you may have a boss or even a coworker who is like having some difficulty in making a decision, is also worried about finances and so on. If you're more independent in your career and whatnot, it could just be that you are sort of at an impasse yourself, not sure to do with the power and things you have. Again, this card is aspecting, so there's some skepticism at work. This card is aspecting here the Seven of Cups, so there's some delusion at work or some reminiscence at work that's holding you or this person back in some manner. And yeah, like I said, there's some doubt or skepticism at work. And there's kind of a desire with this card for things to really be like really wonderful and magical and great and abundant and so on and so forth. So that's also something to consider. With regard to the 11th house of like hopes and things like that, we have the Knight of Cups aspecting, again, offering something new, changes in the air. Ace of Wands, again, something new, changes in the air. And then the Emperor aspecting, trying to desperately sort of hold things together in spite of one's fears and whatnot. But really, I think one is just afraid of change and new potentials and opportunities that could bring you more in touch with the Sun, which is like an ultimate freedom and courage and blessing and so on. With the 12th house, which is very much related to expenditure and like phobias and sort of secret things you harbor that can get in your way. We've already talked about it a bunch, but we've got the Sun aspecting, the Two aspecting, and the Priestess aspecting. So quite a lot of influences, right? Two major arcanum aspecting, symbolizing kind of like a sort of like a secret battle you're having inside your own heart, maybe, between freedom and between like perceptions of how you should behave in society with the Priestess. And then the Two here aspecting, well, this is the 6th house, which I'll get to in a moment, but the Two of Pentacles aspecting, again, it is kind of an inability to make a decision, an inability to do things with the powers and abundance that you have. And so there's kind of a bit of a vicious circle happening, perhaps. Now, in the 6th house here, too, there may be, with the Two of Pentacles here, there may be some debts. There may be some pettiness over small expenditures. I don't think this is anything to worry about, but it's something where you may be concerned over small expenditures or like small injuries even, or small sicknesses. There may be like a hypochondriac thing going on. If somebody with the high priestess aspecting, if somebody's like a nurse or a doctor, make sure that what they're telling you about stuff is not just their own fears being projected, you know? And there's also this thing of like, if you take more risks, if you take more leisure, you might, you're worried that maybe it'll incur some sort of financial problem or compromise. It will, you know what? New things always carry a risk with them of loss or failure. Okay. You couldn't succeed if that wasn't there. So in order to succeed, we have to potentially be able to fail. Right. So that's kind of what that's about to me. And, there could be some powerful hidden enemy in your midst too that's trying to undermine you. So if it's especially if it's a person who present themselves as a friend, but if you've had a sneaking suspicion that they were up to something behind your back, especially with the 2 aspecting and the priestess aspecting, I would definitely recommend taking a closer look at that person and what their agenda is and so on. So that pretty much sums it up. And all in all, like the conclusion is here that you have a lot of power and abundance, but you're not facing certain fears and certain doubts and certain pipe dreams. And they're kind of getting in that, not facing them is sort of getting in the way of you having a real empire where you share your abundance with those around you and help others instead of just hoarding it to yourself for fear of being judged or guilt or fear of losing it. So that's kind of the main message. But things are starting to change for you in some kind of new direction that probably has its roots in something more long term, is the vibe I'm getting. Okay, so I hope this reading was helpful. Please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this, and visit my website for individualized readings and more. Have a great January and a great new year.